Hi, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Monday, May the 21st. Well, Tuesday is Election Day in Arkansas, party primaries and also nonpartisan judicial elections. I think the biggest races on the ballot tomorrow are two races for Arkansas appellate courts, a Supreme Court seat and a Court of Appeals seat. The news here is the reason we shouldn't elect judges. Outside groups, largely dark money groups, unaccountable groups that don't have to disclose specifically where their money comes from, are spending $2 million to try and elect David Sterling to the Arkansas Supreme Court and to elect a newcomer, Johnny Coleman, to the State Court of Appeals. They want to throw out Justice Courtney Goodson from the Supreme Court and Judge Bart Verdon from the Court of Appeals because these groups favor conservative business interests and Republican Party interest politics. They will not be fair. They will not be impartial. The only way to fight dark money in judicial races is to vote for the people they're trying to defeat. In the Supreme Court race, that would be Courtney Goodson or Kenneth Hickson. The Court of Appeals race, the obvious choice is Bart Verdon. He has a good record on the Court of Appeals. There's no reason to beat him, no matter what the dark money ads say. Interesting Republican primary for governor where Jan Morgan has raised a lot of noise about Asa Hutchinson. I doubt she will come close to beating him in the election. But her forces have done a pretty good job of putting out some food for thought in the last days of the campaign, particularly today. A ultra-conservative group called Conduit for Action has put together a list of the really stunning list of corrupt activities that have occurred in the 3 years of the Republican administration, not so much directly because of Asa Hutchinson, but by people he's associated with, his chief of staff, his nephew, and a variety of other people who've taken advantage of the state in various ways. Interesting reading, worth bringing up again in the November general election for sure. Also a lot of national attention, including today from a liberal outfit, Think Progress, about the 2nd District primary race for the Democratic nomination for Congress. This is Clark Tucker, Paul Spencer, Gwen Combs, and Jonathan Dunkley. Tucker's a favorite. He'll likely win that race. He's being depicted in this national media narrative as somehow an establishment candidate against progressive upstarts. That's an oversimplification, I think, but because after all, winning is what politics are about, not so much simply straight devotion to principle. The biggest news in politics today actually is in Little Rock. Baker Kurrus, the businessman who served for years superintendent of the Little Rock School District, fired for going against the state's push for more charter schools in Little Rock, has entered the race for mayor. He'll join Warwick Saban and Frank Scott in what will now be at least a three-way race for office. He's an accomplished businessman, has a lot of thoughts about ways to improve the city. It's nothing but good that the city has three strong and dynamic candidates. Saban has already said he's already raised $250,000. He looks forward to a good contest. The State Correction Department said today that it had 2 more deaths by other than natural causes at prison units over the weekend. One at Bricky's, one at the Varner unit. It was the 6th unnatural cause death at Bricky's. They're under investigation. There are problems in the prisons that aren't yet solved. Little Rock police say they're looking for Brennan Willis, a 28-year-old Illinois man who was last seen late Saturday night when he went on for a jog in downtown Little Rock. Hasn't been seen since. His family's very concerned. No word from him yet. They put out a flyer with his picture, hoping to find him. Tom Cotton over the weekend was revealed to be a nearly sole roadblock to prison reform legislation in the U.S. Senate, even a very modest version of prison reform that Donald Trump has decided to get behind. Cotton thinks prison reform is only more people in prison for longer periods of time. An advocacy group for the disabled filed suit late last week against the state's attempt to put into effect an emergency rule that determines how much home health care is provided under Medicaid to disabled people based on a computer algorithm rather than the personal assessment of a professional caregiver. Turning care over to computers in the case of disabled people is meant to save the state money, not necessarily to improve the quality of their lives.
We tell our girls they can be anything they want to be. And for a while, they believe it.
I want to be a doctor and a rock star.
I want to be a veterinarian.
A few months ago, my daughter Evie asked me if being a lawmaker is an all-boy job. That was the day I decided to run. If my daughter wants to be a world-famous singer, I will be her biggest supporter. And if she wants to be a state representative one day, she needs to know that's available to her too. My path hasn't been typical. I've been a lawyer, a stay-at-home mom, a teacher, and now I'm running for office. I know firsthand that it's never too late to build the life you dream of for yourself. Every Arkansan should have that same chance. We all tell our little girls that they can be anything they dream. Let's build an Arkansas where we can keep that promise.
Also interesting lawsuit filed late last week in North Carolina. It's a defamation lawsuit against Republican state legislator Laurie Rushing. She's accused of defaming her former son-in-law by saying he killed his wife, who was Rushing's daughter. Multiple investigations have found she died of natural causes. Rushing is not happy because her former son-in-law is reluctant to let his children visit with their grandmother, understandably, since she's called him a killer of his wife. That's the news today. We'll be back with what we can tell you about elections tomorrow, although the polls won't be closed. I'm Max Brantley. See you later.